like to share with you the story of my T206 Rainbow and the men that it represents. These aren't Hall of Famers. Heck, they aren't even stars. These are just guys who played the game, each with their own life story. These were tough times leading up to World War I and then the Depression. The game was played by tough men who led tough lives. I put this display together a couple years ago, and it came out so nice that my wife actually let me put it in our family room. I don't know about your household, but here, that is no small feat. These are T206 cards made between 1909 and 1911. If you aren't aware, they were distributed in packs of cigarettes. I spent a long time going through the various T206 cards looking for portraits, specifically, of various colors, trying to identify the cards that I wanted to hunt. I ended up with these 7 players, and I'll go through them one by one. Bill Abstein. Big Bill played in the 1909 World Series. I read in this book that he helped the Pirates beat Ty Cobb's Tigers. But that's quite a stretch of the facts. In fact, Bill set a record at the time with 9 strikeouts during the series. He also led both teams in errors committed during the series. His Sabre bio says that he also committed 3 base running blunders that cost his team runs. The press pulled no punches, criticizing Big Bill for his, quote, dim-wittedness. To his credit, Bill was known to at least be a quiet, moral, hard worker who didn't drink, a rarity in the early days of baseball. But let's face it, he was a major leaguer, and he had skill. But as good as he was at baseball, he was said to be even more skilled, elite even, at soccer. There just really wasn't an avenue for him to pursue that sport. There was an early soccer league, but it just didn't pay. In retirement, Bill worked for the Wagner Electric Company, but in 1939, his son was killed when hit by a car as he was riding his bike. Bill really struggled with the tragedy and died within a year at just age 57. Awful. Representing the color pink, we have Red Downs. A short 3-year career culminating in a negative 1.3 WAR. Downs' story isn't significant because of his skill. Alcohol and the Great Depression crushed Mr. Downs. He was arrested for robbing a jewelry store in L.A. and spent 3.5 years in San Quentin. He later said that drinking had ruined his career and his life. Sad to say that he was not alone in this struggle during that era. Red died from cirrhosis of the liver. He quite literally drank himself to death. Charlie Rhodes, my mystery man. Very difficult man to research. Dusty Rhodes, and yes, that was his nickname, was a right-handed pitcher for the Browns. Not much is known about the man outside of his statistics because he died at just age 33. Mr. Rhodes died from the flu during the 1918 pandemic. Here's an interesting thing about the Spanish flu pandemic. It generally ran from 1918 to 1920 and killed anywhere between 25 and 100 million people. But the index case, or patient 0, was in Haskell County, Kansas. Charlie died in Montgomery County, Kansas, just a few hours away. Jake Atz. Mr. Atz had a 4-year career ending in 1909. He was a light-hitting middle infielder, but became a highly successful minor league manager after his playing days ended. The Fort Worth Panthers won 7 consecutive titles from 1919 to 1925 under his leadership. Atz is in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame and the Texas League Hall of Fame. And Sabre has Jake Atz listed as one of the first Jewish players in MLB. I had a hard time confirming that. The Jewish Baseball Museum makes no mention of Jake Atz. But if Sabre has it, it's got to be true. Frank Delahunty. Accumulating negative 1.5 WAR over a 6-year career, Frank's baseball accomplishments are inconsequential, but he was one of 5 brothers who played in this era and was one of the players who jumped to the Federal League in 1914. His brother Ed, you may have heard of. He's in the Hall of Fame. I talked about Ed in another video a couple years ago. He died under suspicious circumstances, possibly pushed over the edge of Niagara Falls. But back to Frank. Away from the diamond, Frank had prospects that his brothers couldn't match. He was handsome, ambitious, and had a law school degree. He seemed destined for a bright future in law. Frank's domestic situation was equally blessed, with a pretty wife, 3 young children at home. When he hung up his glove in late 1918, life looked pretty rosy for Frank Delahunty. Over the next decade, he managed to throw it all away. He was convicted of taking bribes while holding political office, and later for bootlegging during the Prohibition. By 1930, Delahunty was disgraced, divorced, and likely disbarred, an unemployed ex-con living in a Cleveland flophouse. But over the ensuing 35 years, Frank quietly rehabilitated his life. In time, and with the help of friends, he secured employment in the Cleveland municipal government, eventually rising to the position of supervisor of city streets. He was also welcomed back into baseball, becoming a frequent attendee at Cleveland Indians old-timers games. George Stone of the Boston Americans and St. Louis Browns. For the first 28 years of the American League, the batting title was won by a future Hall of Famer, Ty Cobb, Nap Lajoie, Tris Speaker, or Babe Ruth, except for in 1906. That year, it was our man here, George Stone, who led the league, hitting .358, beating Lajoie by .003, and just 2 hits over the course of the season. He contracted malaria in 1908 and was out of baseball just 2 years later. Stone may be unique in this aspect. His true love was not baseball, but the violin. He said that he would rather be a great violinist with a limited income than a great ball player with a handsome salary. That's some old-timey language there. When's the last time you heard someone say, Shohei Ohtani makes a handsome salary? George retired in Nebraska, where he finally had the time and the financial stability to be able to enjoy his violin. He seems to have died pretty happy at age 68. Good for George. Dave Brain. Dave Brain was born in England in 1879, the only foreign-born player in my rainbow. He put together a 7-year career and is the war leader among these men at 11.6. If you look closely there in 1907, he led the league in home runs with 10 while playing for my Boston Doves, who later became the Braves. He holds the MLB record for most consecutive triples in a 9-inning game with 3. And here's an interesting factoid. After leading the league in home runs, Dave Brain never had another extra base hit. He's the only player able to make that claim. Dave Brain died in 1959 at the age of 80 from a heart attack. You ought to know by now. Finally, if you're curious, I think I'm all in under $1,000 for the cost to build this thing. Not bad, I think, considering these are well over 100 years old, and these cards are in really good shape. It has UV-resistant glass, so they won't fade, and it's a great conversation starter. If you want to build your own, I think another set that might be good for a rainbow might be the 1959 Top set. It's very colorful, and you also have the famous Bob Gibson pink card. I want to thank my friend Sean for inspiration. Sean has his own T206 rainbow, and I hope to get him on at some point, and he can share his. Thank you for your time. Take care. Reindeer Bill Killifer says, sweet Caporal cigarettes are satisfying in every way. Their mild, pure tobacco flavor wins out every time. Sweet Caporal cigarettes. The famous London Lancet Medical Authority of the World officially declared Sweet Caporal the purest form in which tobacco can be consumed. The American Tobacco Company. Isn't this a fair question? Honest to goodness now, would Americans smoke 5 times more Virginia tobacco in their cigarettes than all foreign-grown tobaccos put together if they didn't prefer Virginia's taste? Would Englishmen smoke 20 times as much Virginia as all the Turkish tobaccos combined if they too didn't like Virginia best? Virginia tobacco is the one tobacco ideally suited by nature for cigarettes, and it tastes best smoked straight, unmixed with other tobacco. Try it. Real smoking in a Piedmont. The Virginia cigarette. Piedmont.